Now, Ms. Dyer, let's talk about your relationship with your sister Carrie. You described your relationship with your sister as good yet isolated, correct?
I believe so.
And the truth is y'all have had a strained relationship in the past, correct?
I feel like we've had a pretty normal sibling relationship compared to what I've seen out in the world. I don't pretend
Kind of like a normal mother-daughter relationship that we heard your husband testify about?
I don't pretend any of the relationships in my life to be perfect.
And I understand that, but you believe that it's important when we're making a decision, setting aside all the other emotional stuff and all the tragedy that's happened. You believe that it's important for this court to make a decision regarding the best interest of the child, baby Dennis, correct?
I absolutely believe that it is important for this court to make the best decision for the child. Yes, sir.
And in doing so, the court is depending upon the truthfulness and accuracy of what's been put out as far as in testimony and in these reports. Do you understand that?
I do.
Do you think that you've been truthful in your report and your interactions?
I do.
You don't think you exaggerated things?
What things are you referring to?
Did you try to make any of your relationships with family members look better than they really were?
I don't believe so.
So when you describe your relationship with your sister as good yet isolated, you think that that's accurate, right?
I believe that we had many good times together, and I believe there was a lot of isolation towards the end. Yes, sir.
And you would admit that you've known that Carrie for some time was mentally ill, right?
I would not admit that. I've never sat in on any professional that has said that to me.
Okay. So your basic observations in life would not lead you to believe that your sister may have had some problems mentally.
I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you, did you think that your sister had some problems mentally?
I think that Carrie longed to be loved, and I think that she never found that to her satisfaction. And I think that made her very sad in a lot of times, in a lot of ways, and it probably led to her death.
So it made her sad, but it also has made her violent at times, right?
Not that I've witnessed.
I didn't ask you what you'd witnessed. Are you aware of her being violent in the past?
I can't speculate based on what other people have seen. If you would like to put a document in front of me and ask that I give an opinion on what I feel towards that document, I could do that.
Okay. So you can't speak to her, the allegations of her driving with Wesley in the car, right?
I wasn't there.
Okay. So kind of like Abigail Moore that y'all have been complaining about this whole time, you don't know much if you weren't there to see it, right?
I haven't complained about anything. This is my first opportunity to speak.
So you can't say if you thought your sister was mentally ill, correct?
I don't have any education on being able to make that sort of analysis on anyone.
Okay. And then you've heard the other allegations that we've mentioned, right? So her driving, threatening to kill Wesley in the car, driving through a home where Cody lived. She's been arrested numerous times, charged with child endangerment. None of that gives you any pause, right? To say, she may have had something going on.
I have heard many allegations during this. Yes, sir.
In your report, didn't you indicate that you thought your sister had an undiagnosed mental illness?
I believe that it's possible that she could have. I believe there's probably many people out there who are undiagnosed with all sorts of things. But I'm not educated in that, so I'm not really, I can't really give sort of a professional opinion.
But we've just gone round and round for a minute, and now you're back to saying, yeah, I think that she may have had an undiagnosed mental illness, right?
I think that I'm trying to advocate for what is best for a baby, and I'm not really sure that it's appropriate to speculate on the mental condition of my deceased sister.
Okay. Carrie and you, well, let me scratch that. Did Carrie ever complain to you that you were mean to her?
Yes. She is
Did
not
Carrie
alone.
ever say that again? I'm sorry, I missed that.
She is not alone. Many people have said that about me.
Okay. And Carrie had indicated that she felt like you and Lori were the close ones, right?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Did Carrie ever tell you that she felt like you and Lori were the closer siblings? Better relationship?
That's possible.
There was a lot of discussion going back and forth about Carrie when her and Wesley lived in your home where now Hope lives. You heard that?
I did hear those things.
What year did Carrie live there?
I don't recall the year. She lived there for about 7 months, in between relationships, I believe towards the end of Alex and the beginning of Dennis.
Right. And so, and you kicked her out of the home, correct?
Incorrect.
You just moved Hope and all her kids in, and then that caused Carrie to leave, right?
Also incorrect.
You moved Hope in with her kids, correct?
Incorrect.
Did Hope go live there when Carrie was there?
She did not.
Never?
No.
Okay, so Carrie didn't complain and say that Hope had a dog over there and it was going to the bathroom on the floor and then she left because she was angry about it?
Hope and Carrie never lived together in any circumstance that I can recall.
You can recall. And then Carrie gave you money for the home, correct?
Carrie never directly gave me money. She worked at the bank where I banked, and she would deposit money even though I asked her not to. I told her it wasn't necessary, but she would make deposits once a month while she was staying there.
She believed she was purchasing the residence, right?
I have no idea what Carrie believed, and she's not here to speak for herself today, so I can't speak to that.
So you can't even make a statement as to whether or not you and your sister ever talked about her buying the home.
Those are your words, sir, not mine. I did not say that.
You don't think you're being evasive at all?
I'm answering your questions to the best of my ability.
Okay. Then you also mentioned you'd only met Dennis in your report like once, but now we're hearing from your husband. It was a couple of times, 2-3 times max, right?
I believe my husband said that he saw him visually. The meetings were the only face-to-face meeting that we ever had where we exchanged any conversation that I can recall would have been during the snowstorm when Carrie brought him out to meet us. That was our first meeting with him. There was never a cordial, friendly, get-together type of meeting with Dennis after that.
Okay. But at that meeting that you did see him, that's what your husband said was the happiest he'd seen Carrie, right?
She was in a very good mood that day. She was looking to impress us with her new boyfriend. She thought he looked great. We thought he looked like he was on drugs.
Okay. You were aware, though, whether you saw it or not, you were aware of the incident with Wesley in the car, correct?
I am aware that there was an incident.
Okay. And you were aware of the one with where she drove up to the house and she was later arrested for child endangerment, whether she drove in or, in the yard, she was arrested for child endangerment that day too, right?
I'm aware there was an incident.
Okay. And then you've been aware of her being arrested multiple times. Your husband testified, correct?
I do believe that there were 2 times in 1 week where Dennis's family would present video evidence of Carrie acting a certain way that would incriminate her, but they would not offer up the video evidence of what led up to things. And Llano County Sheriff's Department worked with what they had.
So you're just saying they made up stuff, got her arrested multiple times, right?
You said that. I did not say that. I said that Llano County worked with what they had, and I'm aware that the Price family presented video evidence that made situations look one way. Perspective is everything, and if you're only getting a part of the perspective, then they worked with what they had.
Okay, and they worked with what they had, I guess, many times, according to what your husband said, right?
2 arrests in 1 week is what I know of.
Okay, and then. You're aware of the protective order that was filed on your sister, right?
I know there's been many incidents. I don't know the particular incident that you're referring to.
Sure. And you know that she's been arrested before the Prices brought video evidence in there that they doctored up, right? Or that they clipped, right? She was arrested more than that.
I believe so. I don't know the facts. I believe there was 1 or 2, but I honestly don't know for sure.
Okay. You also indicated that you're really not in communication or in contact with anybody on the paternal side of the family, right?
The Price family?
At the time of your home study.
Correct.
Okay.
Except for when they show up at my work and I have to run into a back room to avoid them.
Okay. And then you further indicated you certainly had, before this had started, you'd never had any interaction with Abigail Moore, right?
That's correct.
And you think that it's important for baby Dennis to have a relationship with his half brothers, right?
I think it's important for baby Dennis to be around positive, loving influences, family environments, family circumstances. So as long as those parameters are met, that is what I believe in. I believe in what's in the best interest of the baby.
Right. But in your report, you basically say that you're going to get restraining orders and you want to keep the Price family away, right?
I didn't say that I was going to get restraining orders. I'm not sure how that got misconstrued, but I definitely, my sister was barely dead when that happened. It's kind of a blurry time in my life. So I apologize for any sort of mix-ups there may have been, but I did not state that I was going to get restraining orders on them. Although should I put it in a circumstance where I feel like myself or my husband or the baby or anyone in my family might be in danger, that could be an avenue that I would explore if I had to.
So you're not disputing that you may have said something like that in your report, right?
I do not recall saying that I was going to get restraining orders on anyone in the family.
Okay. Well, Carrie was arrested twice in 2022, right? We got once in like April and then another one in like July, correct?
I don't have those records in front of me. If you have them in front of you, then I would say that's probably correct, but I can't corroborate that.
Okay. And at one point in July, the police asked you if she could come stay with you and you said no.
I don't recall that. I do recall the time when the police brought her out to my house and dropped her off. I don't recall ever telling the police she couldn't come out here.
Is that something you would have forgotten?
People forget all kinds of things. I mean, I don't recall that, is what I'm telling you. My apologies for not remembering. If I did that, I do not recall. If you have evidence to show that I did, then, you know, the police reports are probably going to be more definitive than what I'm saying.
Sure.
But I do not recall ever telling the police that Carrie could not come out to my house. I do recall telling the police on many occasions.
I'm going to object to non-responsive now at this point, Judge.
I'm sorry.
Stay. Don't say anything else, Ms. Dyer.
I didn't.
Just don't say anything else because you were talking about stuff that he wasn't asking you a question about. So just wait till he asks you the next question.
Yes, ma'am.
You think that it's going to be possible to facilitate a good relationship with Canyon at this point moving forward?
I would certainly love to see that happen.
And of course, Wesley's not coming around much now either, is he?
Wesley, we saw Wesley the day of Carrie's funeral, and then he came and stayed the night with us a few weeks after that. We've tried to reconnect. Getting on Cody and Kayla's schedule has not been the easiest thing, but I am still definitely, Wesley's always welcome here.
Okay. And then, so when actually the CPS removal took place, at what point did you start trying to get baby Dennis?
As soon as I realized that was a position that I was in. The Price family seemed to know much further ahead of time than myself.
I'm going to go ahead and show you what's been marked. It's your own exhibit, Intervenor Dyer exhibit number 7.
Yes.
This is your exhibits. This is a text from Carrie, right?
Correct.
And then here's what Carrie's saying to you. You do anything for our home study? ? Or was that just a front like you cared about the baby? How long have you known ? What have you done ? Oh, that's right, nothing. They want the baby local. Sucks we don't have anyone. Then your response, was there a legitimate question there, or do you mean to harass me? Right? That's what you said.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
That text is when I knew it was time for me to get involved. I didn't know before that.
Okay. And the way you talk to your, hold on. And the way you talk to your sister in this first message, clearly it seemed like she was thinking you'd be doing something, but you hadn't been. And then you said, is that a legitimate question or are you just harassing me? That's how you spoke to your sister, right?
My response to her was, I meant what I said. Is there a legitimate question in there? Or are you just trying to harass me? I did not know that I should have been having a home study before that, which is why I asked her, is there a legitimate question?
So, I mean, I don't have the rest of this text message. You provided this text message. Then the bottom says, the question is, why aren't you trying to foster my child? The second question is, since you aren't trying, why not? So this is your exhibit, right?
As I said before, yes, that is my exhibit.
I'm going to offer in Intervenor Dyer's Exhibit 7, Your Honor. And Ms. Dyer, I mean, this text message alone, this is a snapshot of what your relationship with your sister was like, isn't it? It was strained, wasn't it?
During the time of the awful relationship she was in with Dennis, that is what it looked like very frequently.
Okay. During the line of questioning on Ms. Moore, there was a lot of questions about how Ms. Moore could just not know about what was going on with the relationship with Dennis and Carrie. Do you recall that?
I recall hearing that, yes.
Okay. But you likewise, you're sitting here telling this court now, well, unless I saw it, I don't know what really happened, right?
That's what you said.
Is that what you're saying now?
That's what you're saying.
Okay, well, let me ask you. I just asked a second ago, did you know about these instances? And you simply said, unless you can show me a piece of paper, I can't really tell you if I knew or I didn't know, right?
I said that in regards to the question you asked me about telling the police they couldn't drop her off.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Wesley incident again with driving through the house. Okay, you knew about that one, right?
I did know about that incident, yes.
Okay. And then you knew about the one where she tried to get in a wreck with the car and told Wesley, are you ready to die? You knew about that one too, right?
I have known that there are incidences. The way you word things, you are describing things in a way that I haven't witnessed. I don't know the full circumstances, but I do know there was some turbulent times that started about the time of Carrie's breakup with Cody.
Okay, and you didn't do anything to get involved at that time, did you?
Get involved with what?
With Wesley or with baby Dennis. You didn't do anything during those instances.
That's not true. Like James said, Carrie and Cody had brought Wesley home within 3 days. They were very quick. They were ready. They were willing. They had no kids. They were very happy to do it. We talked about it as a family. There was a lot of discussion about what was going on at the time.
So they did it in 3.
I would definitely not consider myself an uninvolved party.
Okay. So they did it in 3 days, but y'all did have a family meeting about it.
We had
right?
family discussions, yes.
So it wasn't like they beat you to the punch. Y'all discussed it, right?
There was discussions, yes.
And part of those discussions was that nobody else in the family could really handle any other children, right?
That's not true.
There were criminal backgrounds and drug issues that we couldn't get past, right?
In the same way that James and I are trying right now to advocate for baby Denny, we would have done the same thing if Carrie and Cody weren't the ones that were ready and most willing and most prepared. And it made the most sense to our family for them to take that route.
Okay. How many times have you been arrested?
I have no criminal history. I believe I was.
Hold on. Miss Dyer, I'm asking a different question. How many times have you been arrested?
I believe I've been arrested twice.
Okay. And Ms. Dyer, how many times have you been in trouble for writing bad checks?
I haven't had a checkbook since I was in my 20s, so it would be hard for me to recall that information. But I did get in trouble for writing a hot check for my first wedding ring when I was probably 20 or so.
Just that one time?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
I don't recall.
What was did you have a probation revocation or something in another case?
I don't recall.
If you had a number of probation revocations in the past that you can't recall?
No, I just haven't been in trouble in a very long time. So I have not given my criminal history much thought lately.
Okay. Because you reported no criminal history to CPS, right?
Do I have a revocation on my record that you're referring to? Maybe you could refresh my memory.
I'm trying to get you to clarify that. I'm just asking a question and you can't recall. So I guess that's why you didn't report anything to CPS, correct?
I don't recall whatever you just said, revocation, or I don't recall that, anything like that.
Okay. Regarding y'all's budget, So you've just now, within the last 2 years, you've been there for 2 years at least with Wells Fargo, but you and your husband combined, we talked about this, you're making about $6,800 a month, right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And then he's got 2 jobs he's working, correct?
James and I both work on this ranch out here. It's a pretty cush job. We feed animals. We, answer to the ranch owners when they need.
I'm going to object to non-responsive right now, Judge.
I don't know what that means.
Sustained, it means he asked you basically a yes or no answer, and you went beyond that. So just stick to answering exactly what Mr. Davis asked you. Don't add any more.
Okay.
He's working thank you, Judge. He's working 2 jobs, correct?
Correct.
And the house y'all are living in is supplied by one of the jobs, right?
Correct.
And you mentioned in your report that you'd like for him to be able to retire at some point, correct?
I would. I love him. I have seen him work many, many years for a very long time. And I would love to see him to be able to take time off.
Okay. Do y'all have a large retirement built up?
I have a 401k that we're working on.
Okay. Any other retirements?
No.
Roughly what's in your 401k?
I do not know.
Okay. And so y'all don't pay rent on that residence, correct?
Correct.
And y'all pay $617 on the other one, right?
Correct.
So Hope's not.
It has a
So Hope's not.
fluctuating interest rate. My apologies.
It's all right. So, okay, I'm sorry. You were about, go ahead and finish that.
I was just saying our mortgage has a fluctuating interest rate. So sometimes it's a little higher and sometimes it's a little lower.
Okay. So with inflation, it could go quite a bit higher, right?
If you say so. We only have, I think we have 3 years left on our note. So we're almost done with that.
Okay. And Hope's living in that house like we just talked about, right?
Correct.
Okay. And at the time y'all did this assessment, y'all didn't even have insurance, right?
I do not recall if we had insurance at the time or not. We dropped James's insurance about the time that I got mine, so there might have been a small gap in between.
Y'all are clearly going to need to get some childcare at some point, right?
Correct.
Now let's talk about, so Hope's living in the other home. She's got 3 kids with her, right?
Correct.
And her husband's in jail, right?
The father of her children, yes, they were never married.
Sorry, father of her children's in jail. And was there a CPS involvement regarding Hope and her kids?
When I took Hope to the sheriff's department, when her relationship ended, to file.
I'm going to object to non-responsive, Judge.
I'm sorry, I'll try harder.
Sustained. Do you know what the question is, Ms. Dyer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just answer it.
Yes, CPS was involved.
And then, I mean, your daughter's working, but fair to say she's not wealthy, right?
That's probably correct.
Okay. Probably correct that she struggles a little financially, correct?
As do most of us.
Okay. So she's struggling a little bit, and she's got her 3 kids living in the residence that y'all are paying for, right?
Hope also pays rent.
Okay. But she's staying in that residence. So clearly she needs some of your help, right?
As do all children, for sure.
Okay. So, and then you've got 2 other children, right?
Correct.
And you've got other grandchildren, right?
Correct.
None of which are what you would probably consider to be, there's probably not a lot of resources among them financially, correct?
Nobody is wealthy. That is correct.
Okay. So fair to say you've got children and grandchildren immediate relationship to you that are going to need your help, correct?
For the rest of their lives, I feel that is a parent's job to always be available to help their kids financially, emotionally, all of that.
Okay. So going back to this question I asked you a little bit ago about how you think it's important to give truthful and accurate information to the court. You'd also told the investigators that you and your mother, and I believe it's quote, have a great relationship, right?
I don't recall what I told the investigators. Which investigators are you referring to?
For your home assessment, you don't recall ever indicating that you had a great relationship with your mother.
That sounds about right.
Okay, so and would you agree that that's a correct statement?
Right now, it is very correct.
It's very correct while this case has been going on, correct?
It's been very correct for most of my life.
Most of your life. Okay. So let's go back to when you were 15. Your mother married Mr. Parker, correct?
I don't believe she met John until I was about 16. I left when I was 17. I fell in love and got married. And then
well, hold on, that's a different question. Different question. Your mother got married when you were 15, 16, right?
I think I was 19 or 20 when they got married. They met when I was 15 or 16.
Okay. And they started living in the same household with you when they were about 15 or 16, correct?
When I was 16 or 17, that sounds accurate.
Okay. So in your report, if you said 15 or they reported 15, that may or may not be accurate.
It's very close.
Okay. So isn't it true that your stepfather was abusive to you and Lori?
That is definitely not true.
So he never put bruises on you?
Never.
He never threw Lori up against a wall?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And if Carrie had said those things, that she would be lying, right?
If Carrie had said those things, it would be untrue.
And she never indicated, text or otherwise, that one of the sources of conflict you had with your mother is the relationship with the way your stepfather treated you and Lori, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say the question one more time?
To your knowledge, well, I'll say it this way, if she ever indicated in text, conversation or otherwise, that the reason you have one of the reasons you have a strained relationship with your mother has to do with how your stepfather treated you and Lori, would that be inaccurate?
She's never said that to me that I can recall.
So it's possible she said it then, what you're saying, right?
In the realm of possibilities, anything's possible, I suppose.
Because Carrie will say a lot of things, right? Carrie has said a lot of things, right? That have been inconsistent, correct?
There are definitely a lot of inconsistencies going on right now.
Okay. And then before this had been filed, though, you and your mother, fair to say, before the suit started, y'all had a very tenuous and actually a non-existent relationship for at least a couple of years, right?
We have had our ups and downs, that is correct.
Okay. But that wasn't reported in your report. With your great relationship, you never indicated anything like that, right?
I don't recall everything that I indicated in my report.
Okay. You've called the cops on your mom before, right?
Not correct.
You've never called the police on your mom?
I don't know why you keep asking me that. I've answered it several times. I've never called the police on my mom.
Have the police ever shown up for a dispute involving your mother?
The police showed up at the end of mine and Carrie's relationship regarding the house. She was leaving it unlocked. I wanted the house to stay locked when she was gone. There was disputes about who was coming in and out of it without my knowledge.
And did your mother show up regarding that?
I did not witness that. It's possible she did, but I didn't witness it. I don't really know for sure.
You don't know. So you don't know if your mom showed up, a dispute with the cops there. And did you say that your mom wasn't supposed to be trespassing?
I don't know what dispute you're referring to with the police, but I did speak with the police in regards to Carrie moving out of the house.
Have you ever told the police or anybody else that your mother was not to be trespassing on your property?
It's possible that I told the police during that time that I didn't want my mother going in there and rifling through my things. I don't like anybody rifling through my things. I still had a lot of things.
Objection, non-responsive at this point.
Sorry, Judge.
Sustained.
Your mom wasn't invited to your home for Carrie's baby shower, correct?
Incorrect.
Did your mom show up at the baby shower?
She did not show up at the baby shower.
Did you invite her to the baby shower?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Okay, so when everybody else says that Carrie's mom couldn't come because of Jamie, that's a lie.
I don't know who everybody else you're referring to is, but I did invite her and she did not show. She's a little paranoid after the whole COVID thing. She doesn't want to be around a lot of germs.
But she showed up over at your house, right? When was that? She showed up over at your house for the dispute with Carrie? When was that?
I do not know that she showed up at the house. I told you I had a conversation with the police.
All right.
If she did show up at the house, should I stop? I'll stop.
Okay, and then, I mean, would you agree with this statement? Carrie didn't like staying at your mom's house, right?
I don't believe that's correct. She had a whole bedroom there.
She had a whole bedroom there. Did she ever indicate that she liked staying at your mom's house because of the way it was kept?
Carrie was definitely a neat freak.
A neat freak. So, considering your mom's house, would you consider it way more than just cluttered?
I consider myself to keep a cleaner house than a lot of people, including my mom.
So your mom's asking for placement too right now. Should CPS place with your mom?
I don't see a problem with that at all.
In historically speaking, do you see any problem with placing with your mother?
I don't understand what you mean by historically.
So, I mean, her house, I mean, I know that they've cleaned some of it up now, but her house has been, I mean, for lack of better terms, it looked more like hoarding going on, correct?
I believe that her house is in much better condition now. James and I we've worked as a family to get things to where everybody is pleased, including the baby. And I believe that moving forward
I'm going to object to non-responsive now.
Sorry, Judge.
Ms. Dyer, when I asked you historically if there was anything that would concern you about placing with your mom, the way the house was kept, that doesn't bother you?
I know you want me to speak towards the past, but I thought we were speaking towards the future of this baby.
And I agree with you. I understand that we want to talk about the future, but it's important to make sure that we've reported accurately about the past. Don't you agree?
I do.
Because don't you agree that the past in some ways a good indicator of how the future might be?
In some degree, yes, but I also view it as stepping stone to our future.
Understood. So the way your mother's house was kept originally before the suit, that didn't bother you with placing baby Dennis there?
When I was growing up, she kept a neat house.
Ms. Dyer, let's focus on the last, I don't know, we'll go with 12 months. The way your mother's house was kept in the last 12 months, that doesn't give you any concern for placing baby Dennis there.
Do you want me to exclude the most recent 6 weeks? Because the most recent 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fair. Let's go ahead and exclude the most recent 6 weeks.
If you'd like me to focus on the worst part of her time period of housekeeping, then I would say there was more clutter than I would be comfortable with.
And it would make you concerned to place a baby there, right?
Not currently.
But back then that would have bothered you to place a baby there, right?
I thought we were talking about right now.
No, ma'am. I'm talking about back then.
Okay. Yes, sir. There was a time when I would be uncomfortable with that. I believe that time is over. I believe that we're working as a family to get things the way that I know rejected.
Right. How many other things did you not report accurately just because you want to only focus on where we are right now in this moment? How many other things are inaccurate?
Hold on. Too many of y'all were talking at one time. What was your objection, Mr. Rogers?
I think that was argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Let's talk about your sister Lori real quick, okay?
Sure.
So your sister Lori, she was Wesley's mother, and she lost rights to Wesley, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that had to do significantly with a drug problem, right?
I believe so.
You believe so? You're not aware that was the reason?
You're putting words in my mouth again.
Okay. Do you believe it might have had to have something to do with the fact that she went to prison for drugs?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you blame your mother for some of that?
I do not.
Okay. Let's ask it a different way. Have you ever said that your mother bears fault, or at least some responsibility, in what happened to Lori as far as drugs go?
I have probably said something along the nature, yes.
Okay. And you've probably said that your mother used to buy drugs for Lori a couple times a week.
It's possible that I have speculated that.
But when I asked you if there's anything that concerned you about your mom's house, you've got no concerns, right?
Again, you're putting words in my mouth.
And then when I also asked you about your study, how it was important to be honest, you indicated that there's been no history of drug use or abuse in your family's history, right?
We were questioned about drug abuse, and I believe that I answered those questions correctly.
You didn't mention anything about your concerns with that your mother may have done that in the past with Lori, right?
Past concerns are not my current concerns.
Okay. So you want this court to just take a little snapshot when y'all have gotten your act together, right? That's what you want the court to do.
That's what you are trying to make it look like I want, but no, that's not accurate. What I want the court to do is to find in the best interest of the baby. That is my absolute bottom line.
But you're not disputing that you've sent messages to Carrie before talking about your mother's involvement with Lori's drug use, right?
I have sent many messages to Carrie about many things.
Okay. And regarding, have you ever mentioned that the ranch management gig for your husband probably not going to last forever, right?
Nothing lasts forever, so I'm certain that I could have said something like that for sure.
Okay. And so if it doesn't last forever, y'all got to find another place to live, right?
For sure.
Or go move back in and then Hope will have to move out, right?
I would never kick my daughter out of her home. We have 4 acres over there, so there's room to add houses in the same way that the Prices have their families all living on the same property.
Okay. How much have y'all paid in legal fees right now?
I don't recall.
How much money have you actually sent over to an attorney?
A few thousand, I believe. I don't recall.
So you don't know how much you owe at this point?
I owe a few thousand, I'm sure.
Okay. Who are y'all paying for the litigation, or are you getting help from somebody?
We are.
Okay. And then did y'all owe some back taxes on that property where Hope is for some time?
Yes, we did.
You owed about $10,000?
Correct.
And when did you take care of that?
This last week.
This last week because you thought you'd be asked about it?
No, because I didn't want my house to be foreclosed on.
So you indicate
I would be asked about it today. That's a surprise.
So you indicate that that if you and your husband need to go and have a date night, that your mother is who you would let baby Dennis go to, correct?
I mean, we have lots of people. We could definitely ask my mom, but we have lots of friends. We have a pretty big village of people in our network.
Okay, but that was the one you'd reported. That was the one y'all reported on your study, right?
Once again, we had just buried my sister. I have a really hard time remembering all of those questions and how I answered them. You probably have a better visual than I do.
Sure. And you had another friend you listed too. That was Jenny Savells.
That's Carrie's best friend. Jenna and we're acquaintances through Carrie. Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I probably did list her on my home study. She's been very in contact with volunteering.
Is she here today?
She would be. If you'd like me to get her on the phone, I can.
Well, she was here last time, right?
I believe so.
Right. And you heard me also mention, isn't she the one that was throwing away puppies and got in trouble for throwing away puppies with her daughter on the side of the road?
I do believe I recall hearing that.
Okay. So y'all didn't, she's not buzzing to get in the waiting room now, is she?
I have no idea what she's doing right now, but okay. I do know that I've had no communication with her in regards to dumping puppies or don't come on here because it could look bad for me. We've had no conversations like that.
Understood. But out of the people that you turned to when you needed to do your home study, the people that were your go-tos were your mother and stepdad and Jenny, correct?
Her name is Jenna, and she was Carrie's best friend, and she has been very—
I object to non-responsive at this point.
Sustain.
Can I answer it more simply?
Yes, Mr. Davis, ask for the question again, please.
Yes, sure. And at the time when it was necessary to come up with names of people you could depend on, the ones you gave in your report were my mother and stepdad and Jenna. I'm trying to find the right name, but Jenna. Those were the names, right?
Yes, sir. It was a very turbulent time that I have a hard time recalling why I chose or said half of the things that I said. Again, we just buried my sister.
And then your aunt that's showing up, Miss, sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. I think it's Anderson. Is that correct?
That would be Carrie's biological aunt. We have different fathers.
Okay, that aunt. Or sorry. So different biological fathers. So her aunt, so Carrie's aunt, you'd never met her before, right? Before this suit.
That's incorrect.
Okay. How many times have you met her before?
Well, I grew up with her, coming to family functions. My mother was married to her brother from the time I was about 10 to 15, 5 to 15, about a 10-year period. So I saw her many times growing up. She came to Carrie and Cody's wedding.
Okay.
She's kind of a distant relative, so I haven't had a whole lot of interaction with her, but I've definitely been around her more than a dozen times.
So if the court doesn't place with you or your mom, you think that Carrie's aunt is a proper placement for Dennis, right?
I do.
And thinking in Dennis's best interest, right? That's who you believe would also be an excellent placement for baby Dennis, correct?
I do.
Compared to Abigail Moore, you think your aunt, the aunt, and your mother are better placements, correct?
I don't know Abigail Moore, but I know half a dozen members of her family.
I'm going to object to non-responsive.
The same. It's a yes or no question.
Ask me the question one more time, Mr. Davis.
Yes, ma'am. In looking at baby Dennis's best interest, if we're not placing with you, you believe, as opposed to Abigail Moore, that it would be more proper, better suited for baby Dennis to place with your mother or Carrie's aunt.
I do.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Lang.
So we're going to go back through a little bit of what you've been talking about and talk some more. So is this the first time you've had an opportunity to speak to the court about the baby and the situation with your sister?
I believe so, yes.
And is this really the first time you're having to hear about it? You heard the first day of testimony and now hearing it all again. Is it a little emotional day for you?
Yes, ma'am, very much.
Okay. Are you scared of not being able to be the person to be able to take care of baby Dennis? Does that scare you to not know that that's a possibility for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're going to relax a little bit and go back through some of this, and I'm going to see if we can help you clarify the record a little. Now, to note, the home study was done on November the 9th. What day was Carrie's funeral?
Oh, that was a very blurry day. It was about a week after she died. It was on a Saturday.
And so during that whole period of time, the family's processing that loss and a little baby that's still out there. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And there were two different people that came out and did the home study, or one person? How did that go?
Nancy McDougall came to visit us first. She's a CASA representative.
Okay.
And then Sonia Honya came for CPS, I believe.
So a lot going through your mind, a lot without any notes. You didn't have any notes in front of you for dates and to remember details of things. Is that right?
Correct.
And did they ask you a lot of questions, or did she ask you a lot of questions?
A lot.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Carrie. And you, in your nervousness, were hesitant to say that she was mentally ill. But you do agree that she had perhaps had undiagnosed mental illness. Is that fair to say?
I believe that's possible.
Okay. But you didn't go to a doctor with her, a psychiatrist, to be diagnosed as mentally ill. Does that require, in your mind, like a diagnosis that you are aware of and familiar with?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you kind of trying to protect Carrie's image now that she's passed?
She can't speak for herself today.
So you're kind of guarding your words a bit because of that?
I just want what's best for the baby.
Is it fair to say that as Carrie, after she and Cody had their issues, she didn't respond to stress in a healthy way? Would you agree to that?
I would.
There were episodes when it wasn't appropriate or wasn't productive and the best thing to do. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And so Mr. Davis asked you quite a bit. He went back and forth to Wesley and the situation when Carrie was emotional and there was an incident. So you did say you were aware that she was arrested, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she ever sit down and have a conversation with you and say, hey, sister, let me tell you all about it. This is what went down.
She tended to hide the worst part of herself from me, I think.
Okay. Did you ever get a copy of the police report to read the details as to what happened with that incident?
No, ma'am.
So had y'all been close at that time? What was going on with her and Cody that this would have happened and you didn't have Wesley at your house, for example?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time?
Sure. During this time, whenever this incident happened with Wesley, you had said there were turbulent times going on between her and Cody. So what was your relationship with her at that time? Were you speaking daily? How did this all evolve? And I think everybody's wondering why Wesley wasn't at your house. Why was he exposed to this with Carrie?
I think in the same way that Carrie was very in love with Dennis, I think she was very in love with Cody in the same way. And when they were breaking up, was very hard for her. Like I said before, she always wanted love. She wanted to be loved. She wanted to be the center of somebody's world. And as far as Wesley is concerned, I didn't know that she was having episodes, or I didn't know that she was acting in an appropriate way when she would have Wesley. Cody is a very protective Papa Bear type, and anytime Cody was concerned, Cody would swoop in and keep Wesley.
Earlier about why Carrie gave up her rights to Wesley. What is your impression of what happened?
There was a time when, from my understanding, what Carrie told me, that Wesley and Dennis were starting to butt heads, and Dennis asked Carrie, told, I don't know, it's either him or me. And Carrie chose Dennis, from my understanding.
You said something interesting early on in your testimony, and you were asked if Carrie had said that you were mean to her, and you said, well, there's other people say that about me too. So what is it about your character, you, Jamie? Are you a mean, bitter, hateful person? What's going on with that?
I'm definitely not mean or bitter or hateful, but I do have a pretty high bar of expectation. I have a very high bar, and I'm sure that anybody you could ask today would corroborate that.
So if you have an expectation and they don't meet it, you would say, hey, you disappointed me, and they would interpret that as being mean to them.
I don't generally tell people you disappoint me. I don't want to make people feel bad, but I suppose I have other ways of, if Carrie is coming to me and she's crying about Dennis and their relationship, and many times she said, I just want you to love Dennis. I just want you to love him like me. And I can't love a person like that. And I don't want to make her feel bad, but I also can't enable that sort of behavior. I'm not an enabler.
So you're saying you can't love a person like that, meaning like someone with the behaviors that Dennis has, or you just don't have the ability to love someone like that?
I can't love someone who beats their woman up or does that sort of thing in front of their kids. I don't know. I don't mean to give mixed signals, or I'm a very, very loving person. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess the truth is in the pudding, Miss Dyer. I think people have been watching you in your visits with the baby, and other parties in the hearing today have been around you frequently. So I think they see true to who you are. And so I think you're doing fine. Let's talk a little bit about the house. And you didn't kick Carrie out, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but how, well, and you already testified about the money, how you didn't ask for that money. She just paid the mortgage payment for y'all. Is that how that happened?
Well, she would make a deposit into my bank account. We always paid our own mortgage, but which was through a different bank. But she worked where we keep our money.
Okay.
And so she would just deposit money into my bank account.
Okay. But did you ever have a conversation with her that said, this is so you can buy this house?
We had conversations about her purchasing my house, but they were only conversations. And when those conversations stopped was when she realized that she wasn't going to be able to convince Dennis to move off of his parents' property.
So originally it was, why don't me and Dennis buy this house and we'll move over here? And you said, well, yeah, we could think about that. Is that how it went down?
I believe that's what Carrie was hoping for.
But there was nothing in writing. And at what point did you make it clear to her that, look, you're sure you understand we're not talking about a sale here?
There was never any point where we said we're going to stop conversations about this. There was never any money exchange for a sale. There was only discussions about her possibly buying it with, I believe she intended on her and Dennis buying it together. But
So it could be that she goes back to Dennis and says, look, my sister is selling us the house. I'm going to take this money. I'm going to put it in my sister's account. She could have done that, correct?
She could have had those conversations with him, I suppose, yes.
And it wouldn't have been a real true reflection of what your interpretation of this was. Is that right?
Yes.
So
wait, what did you say, Ms. Dyer?
I said, yes, ma'am.
So what was happening? You said she was there 6 or 7 months, but then she quit staying there. Can you fill that gap in for us?
Well, she was trying to move in with Dennis.
Had she lived with him before?
She had been staying with him periodically through the end of the time that she was staying in our house in Granite Shoals.
So was this after Alex?
Yes.
So did she left Alex and moved in with you guys in Granite Shoals?
Well, she was living with Alex. She and Alex had problems. She moved into our house in Granite Shoals. Alex was still in the picture for a little while. And I'm not exactly sure at what point Dennis and Alex overlapped, but I believe there was kind of they overlapped somewhere in the middle of when she was staying in our house.
Okay. So it's early in the relationship with Dennis, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So she wanted to move in with him on his family's property. Did she say she felt welcome over there, or what was the situation? Why didn't she just go there and quit living at your house?
I can't be sure. The only thing that I can be sure of is that she wanted to live with Dennis.
Okay. So she started staying over there more and more and leaving your house unoccupied. Is that right?
Correct.
And would she leave it unlocked?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you keep your own personal belongings in that house, although she was living there?
Yes, ma'am.
You had a garden and rose bushes and things that you take care of at that house or like to have taken care of?
I had 17 rose bushes when James and I moved out here. I had, I think, 7 fruit trees. I had a baby I had a lot. I had 10 years worth of trees and landscaping that were very important to me. Carrie and I definitely did not see eye to eye on the landscaping. She didn't want to do it, and I really wanted it done. So sometimes I would come over there and have to mow and water and.
So who called the police? How did they wind up out there? What is that whole story about with the police being there and getting involved in the situation?
Carrie called the police.
She called them on you?
I'm not exactly sure who she called or how she reported it, but I received a call from the police. The police thought that I was her landlord. They had no idea I was her sister. And she had told them that I was not allowing her into the house that she paid rent for. And I explained to them There was a point when I went and put locks on the outside of the doors. And I had told Carrie, anytime you need to go over there, let me know. I'll meet you over there. It's not a problem. Either James or I will go over there and let you in. I just don't want my things to be in a house that's not locked up. As you know, people can tell when a house is vacant.
So at this point, how she had quit staying there full time. She'd already gone to live over with Dennis and his family.
She hadn't been there in at least a week when I put locks on.
Okay. But you did call and tell her, and you said, if you want to get in, let us know.
Yes.
And did she tell you then her full intention was to quit living there altogether?
I don't recall what she told me. I knew that she wanted to be with Dennis
Mm-hmm.
and where Dennis was.
Okay. So they showed a little, our exhibit number 9, I believe it was, of that text message that Carrie had sent you. And that came, you'd provided that to me to share with the court. And that was a big exhibit 7, I'm sorry. And that was around September the 17th. Does that sound right to you, Jamie?
That sounds about right.
And that was after, so the adversary hearing happened around the 14th, which was the hearing to, justify the removal. The baby Dennis was taken on September 6th. And there was a family team meeting that same day on September 6th. Did you attend that?
I believe that was one of the ones I attended. I think there were 3 total, and I attended 2, if memory serves.
Could have been on September the 6th. And there would have been some people there, like the facilitator, an investigator named Michael Broshears. Do you remember ever talking to an investigator?
Possibly.
Maybe not. Chastity Brock. Carrie was there, right? And Dennis, Nancy, and you. Okay. And it was that was like right after the baby was removed that day. And I don't know, I wasn't involved in the case. I don't know time of day, which came first or second, but evidently it must have been after the meeting. Did you share a concern with the people in that room about Carrie's safety that day? Do you remember?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember what it was you said?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe I said something along the lines of, I was very concerned that the Price family was going to kill Carrie.
Okay. Actually, like Carrie will be killed one day. Is that? And it was less than a month later that she was killed. Is that right?
That sounds accurate.
Why did you think that? What did you base that on?
Months of violence, her coming to my work, her coming to my home, photographs I took of her, bruises, just my own personal experiences with Carrie and several members of Dennis's family, threats, insanity. I would definitely call it insanity.
Okay. Because that incident that your employer talked to us about happened in February of this year, and we're now talking about September of the same year, 2022. So the incident at the bank had already happened at this time, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to come back to some of that in a few minutes, but for now, I mean, the language, they held up the slide and she says, you do anything for a home study? Or was that just a front, like you cared about the baby? She's kind of sassy with you, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were sassy back to her a little bit, like, okay, was there a legitimate question here? Or are you just trying to harass me? And is that just exemplary of the stress and that the relationship that was going on during this period of time?
Yes, ma'am. I would say that's an accurate characterization.
September 17th, that was after that team meeting when you told everybody you were afraid Carrie she's going to be killed.
That was 2 days after her birthday.
Okay. I'm sure you do it different now. If you had a chance to do it different, wouldn't you, Jamie?
I sure would try something different.
All right. Let's talk about your criminal history a little bit, Jamie, just how that would have been, are they both, evidently there were maybe 2 arrests, and did things happen all close to the same time? I hate to have you go back that far in your memory, but was it, I remember reading the CPS report and it wasn't anything that was the basis of a denial on the home study, but there was something there. What can you recall about that, that?
I wish I could recall. That was a very small period in my life. I wrote a hot check for my wedding ring. I didn't mean to write a hot check, but by the time the check cleared, it wasn't this wedding ring. It was my first marriage.
How old were you then, Jamie?
Oh, 19, maybe 20. Okay. I was very young. I can't remember.
Was it just one hot check, or have you had 2 incidences?
I don't remember. I haven't had checks since, I can tell you that for sure. So whatever that lesson was that I learned it good.
How old are you now, Jamie?
I'm 46.
Okay. So you were asked about your 401k balance, and I don't know how many people actually know the actual dollars and cents in theirs, unless they're hawking it, but do you have a general idea? And when was it opened, when you started at Wells Fargo?
I started it when I first started with Wells Fargo.
So it's not been open that long, correct?
No.
Okay. So do you have a rough idea about what it is?
I believe I contribute the maximum amount that Wells Fargo duplicates, which I think is 6%. I'm not I know I'm a banker, but money is not super important to me. Love and happiness is what motivates my character. So I'm not super in touch with how much I have in my 401k.
Is it your intention for James to just quit working and you guys live off of whatever that small amount might be now and your income from the bank? Is that your intention when you said you hoped he could retire?
I would like to live on love in that way, but I know that's unrealistic. So yeah, James is probably not going to quit working anytime soon. And I suspect if he ever did quit working for an employer, that he probably will start his own business doing his own thing. He's a busybody. He doesn't sit still.
Did y'all have health insurance through James' employer at one point in time?
We did.
And so how long did that go on?
The last several years.
Which company was that, over at the machine shop in Sunrise Beach?
Yes, it was through Sunrise Beach Resort and Marina.
So whenever you said in your home study you didn't have health insurance until you got on your bank, it was only because of that gap in time from when he left the marina till your bank started. Is that what it was?
Yes, ma'am. It's more affordable to have insurance through my work than it was his.
Okay, so it's your practice to maintain health insurance for your family, it sounds like. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you wanted to tell a little bit more about the incident with Hope and CPS and your communication with the police department when Mr. Davis was talking to you. So what was it why did you take Hope to the police department?
I received a phone call that Jason had probably assaulted Hope the night before. And so I left work and I went to her house and I asked her what happened, and she tried to hide it. And I told her you're not going to lie to your mother. And so we went to the sheriff's department and they took pictures, and she made a statement in writing. They told us that they were going to issue an arrest for Jason, and they didn't. But what they did do was call CPS.
Okay. And so, but there wasn't was it like a participation case? Did she talk to you much about it? Do you know many details about it at all?
I know she jumped through every hoop that she was asked to: drug testing, parenting classes, therapy, maintaining employment. They have struggled. I know that they have struggled with lice. We have had to really wrangle that issue. We've gone into Austin and spent the several $100s to do that delicing and done tea tree oil and mayonnaise and anything that you can. It's my understanding that lice is kind of an epidemic right now. I don't know.
But the children were never taken out of her home, were they?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And she today has them in her custody and care. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you classify her as a daddy's girl?
Definitely.
Did she spend a lot of time with her dad and learning machinery and mechanics and things like that?
Yes, ma'am. She could install a transmission better than most grown men when she was 17.
Okay. Talk a little bit about the relationship with your mother. I know Mr. Davis asked you about that. Once again, you said that you have a great relationship with her, and this was a couple of weeks after the funeral. So your state of mind at that point in time, it was a true reflection, is that right, of how you were feeling about your family and your mom?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the home study, they didn't sit there and spend, 6 hours in one hearing and now another, along 5, 6 in this one, giving you a chance to process and answer a lot of questions about that stuff, did they?
That's correct.
So what you're saying today is a chance for you to reflect and look at that. And, it is great now, but you acknowledge that you've had your ups and downs as mom and daughter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they talked about how, you said that the concern about the drug dealing, your mother dealing drugs, you said you were forgot the term you used, speculating on it is what you said. And, was it because you're emotional during that time? Was that a hard time when y'all were going through your sister's drug addiction?
Yes, ma'am.
And in fact, it had gone on for a number of years. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And was your mom a little doting and enabling with her? Is that a fair statement?
She definitely loves her daughters.
Yeah. And Laura lived on her property. Is that right?
Laurie lived on property that my mom owned. Yes.
So it wouldn't be unusual for you to be pissy and mad and scared for your sister and say something like, for all I know, mother's buying the stuff for her. Is that where that came from? How did that come up if you would have ever said that?
That sounds accurate.
But do you really believe that?
No.
But you thought your mother maybe loved her that much that, my God, she would do something. She loved her that much.
I just didn't know what was going on. I tend to be a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was looking for ways to fix what was going on, and I can't really give you a good answer on why I lashed out at my mom, but I was definitely upset.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely upset for what Laurie was going through, and my mother and I, and anyone who's looking at a situation like that, nobody's going to have the same two methods of trying to fix a situation like that. Mine maybe is a little more barky than other people's.
Sound mean sometimes, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. Mr. Davis asked you about a text conversation that it was between Carrie and Carrie must have sent it to somebody on their side of the family. And it was about why you have a strained relationship with your mother is because your stepfather mistreated you. You remember him asking you about that?
I do remember him talking about it.
And he said, what if there was a text message that said this, but you never wrote a message to Carrie saying, our stepfather mistreated me. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
So how is it possible that they're getting text messages from Carrie? I mean, did you have a concern about her privacy and her passwords and things like that when she lived with the Prices?
I definitely have a concern for her privacy then and now. It appears to me that they have access to her accounts, her email accounts, her Facebook accounts. They have control over her phone account. And I believe that they're still using that information to send it to Mr. Davis to try and mischaracterize, what our relationship looked like.
How do you know that, did you do something that how did you validate that her passwords are available to somebody having Dennis Price's phone number?
I was going through my Facebook messages with Carrie, and I found a message where she had sent me her email password. And when I went to log into Carrie's email, it said that I had the incorrect password, and it said, you have the incorrect password. Would you like us to text you a reset code to the phone ending in what Dennis Price's phone number is? So I know that at the very least, there's access to Carrie's email, and through email, you can reset passwords to all of your accounts, your Facebooks. So they still have access to her email, her Facebook. They can dig through anything they want to try and.
Okay. So we talked to, Mr. Davis asked you a little bit about her friend, Jenna. And so had you had you've talked to Jenna some since Carrie's passing, I guess, or even before?
Yes, she's always checking in with me, wanting to know how things are going.
Did Carrie ever tell you that she asked Jenna to also be considered for placement?
Many people have told me that Carrie approached them for placement.
And okay, I've not ever done this before, Judge. I don't know if we need a break yet or not, but I need to see about getting my slide deck up. And I've not ever done screen share on a Zoom hearing, so I'll have to get Angelica to work with me a little bit.
Do you know what time 40 minutes was or 45 minutes was?
It was at
By
12:50.
Okay. If he's not on in another minute, I'll call over there.
I think it was 12:50. Maybe it was earlier than that, but I think I said 12:50.
In the meantime, may I ask a question for scheduling purposes, Your Honor? I know that we were able to accommodate an occupational therapist at our first setting. I have a bank employee that I would like to be able to call, Janlyn Lovelady, and she took today off. Is it at all possible? Could the parties agree to let her come out of order? Maybe we finish with Mr. Dyer and then call her, or whatever. I understand whatever everybody wants, but I just thought I would make the request.
Anybody have any opposition to that?
No, Judge.
No, Judge.
Okay, thank you.
So anybody have any objection to Ms. Lovelady going right now?
No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. And where do you work?
I'm the branch manager of the Wells Fargo in Kingsland, Texas.
How long have you been in that position?
I have been the branch manager for about 2 years.
Okay. And were you an employee of that same location prior to that?
Yes, ma'am. I have been there 7 years.
Okay. And so what other roles did you play when you worked there?
I started out as a teller. I worked my way to banker, service manager, and now branch manager.
And in the role of service manager, did you have an opportunity to supervise Jamie Dyer?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you currently work with her as well in a different position?
Yes, ma'am. I am her boss.
Did she get promoted from being a teller?
Yes, ma'am. Recently, last November.
And what is her new position?
She is a banker.
Okay. Prior to going into the banking business, I understand you were a preschool teacher down in Katy, Texas. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you did that for 9 or 10 years?
I only lived in Katy for 2 years. So I was a preschool teacher for 2 years when I lived in Katy. And then prior to that, when I lived in Midland, Texas, I worked with preschool and in the baby infant room. So a total of 9 years. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in working with Jamie, did you have an opportunity to see if she's had some family problems?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there an incident or several maybe that happened at the bank on or about February 8th of 2022 involving any family matters with Jamie and her family? And if you can explain a little bit what happened.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It was February 8th. I do have some notes that I will be looking down at. Is that okay?
Whatever refreshes your memory, but let me ask you some question so it'll make it go faster. So you were working at the bank as the manager, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you get to meet Carrie Price at that time?
Yes.
Had you met her before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How often had you seen her, or how frequently?
So when Carrie was married to her first husband, Cody, they were also bank account holders. So she had come in a few times with that. And then she had also come in a few times as just an account holder. And then she came in a few times to see her sister.
Okay. And no, ever any problems with Carrie? Her behavior appropriate? Was she respectful?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So on this day, what happened?
So on February 8th, around 12:45, 1 p.m., Carrie actually walked to the bank from where she was living in Kingsland, I believe on Glass Road, which was probably about 3 miles.
And how was she
sorry,
dressed? That's okay. How was she dressed?
She had on like leggings and a t-shirt, no jacket. She had slides, like flip-flop type slides on.
And did she, so she didn't have a coat on. Did she have a purse with her?
No, ma'am. She had no purse with her, no cell phone. She had the baby's diaper bag, but there were limited items in the diaper bag. She did have the baby with her. He was in an infant carrier, no stroller. She had walked from Glass Road to the bank in Kingsland, toting the baby in the infant carrier.
And by that, you mean one of those hard plastic, kind of heavy carriers. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. The ones that you buckle in the car.
Was it cold outside that day?
Yes, it was like freezing. We had either just had the freeze or we were about to have the freeze.
Okay. Did she say what had happened to her phone?
She said that Dennis had her phone.
Okay. And how did Jamie respond to her sister coming up pregnant, carrying a baby into the bank?
At first she was a little panicked. She came into my office and was like, I had saw Carrie walk into the bank and I thought maybe she was bringing the baby up there to like show him off because he was probably about a month old. And Jamie came into my office and was like a little panicked and was like, she walked up here. And I was like, excuse me? Like she walked. And so I went out into the lobby where Carrie was. The baby was, in his little infant carrier. And Jamie had told me she had called James to come pick her up.
Okay, so she wouldn't interrupt your business. Is that why she did that, you think?
Yes, and just so Carrie could have some privacy, I believe, not just sitting in a bank lobby.
Did Carrie seem upset?
She did, yes.
Did she tell you what happened and why she walked 3 miles carrying a baby in a carrier up to the bank in flip-flops in February?
She had mentioned that her and Dennis had been fighting, that Nancy had scooped up the baby. She mentioned that she was just praying the baby would cry so she could get him back from Nancy. And then that's when she left. And Dennis had her phone and purse and she didn't have anything on her. She just grabbed what she could.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions about that. When you said she scooped up the baby, did Nancy put the baby in like a little personal carrier kind of thing and take the baby away from Carrie? Is that how she described it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And so Carrie, you said she was praying the baby would cry why was that?
So that Nancy would bring him back over, I guess, so she could feed him. I guess that's why he would be crying, because he was hungry.
Okay. And so did the baby get restless sitting there in the lobby while y'all were all talking to the baby?
A little. I mean, he was a 1-month-old baby. He fussed a little bit. And Carrie did make an odd comment. She said, "Oh, don't cry. They're going to think I'm a bad mom." And it kind of caught my attention. And I looked at her and I said, "You're not a bad mom." And I looked at Jamie and I was like, "She's a bad mom." And Jamie said, Don't put those thoughts in your head. You're not a bad mom."
Okay. So then James, I guess, picked her up and then she left with James. Is that how that went out?
They sat in the parking lot until Jamie got off work. It was her half day at that time. Jamie left around 2:30, and at that point, they all 4 left.
So did you have an encounter with anybody from the Price family later that day after they had left?
I did. Around 4:45, Nancy Price came into my office.
Okay. Was she happy to see you? Was she upset? What was her demeanor?
She was very upset. She, asked me if Jamie Dyer worked here. I told her, yes, ma'am. She wanted to initially close all her accounts and her family's accounts because she didn't want their accounts to be there since Jamie worked there. She was upset because she said that Jamie has talked Carrie into leaving her son and they took off with her baby.
She said those words, they took off with her baby?
Yes.
Wow. And then did she have a phone with her or any listening devices or anything?
She had like an earpiece in her ear, like I guess like a wireless type earpiece, and she was holding a cell phone.
Did she share a concern that she thought Jamie used drugs with you?
She did. She asked if Wells Fargo drug tested their employees. I told her, no, ma'am, we do not drug test, that we do extensive background checks before anyone is hired. She did not like that answer. She told me that I should drug test Jamie because she grows marijuana on her land. And I informed Miss Price that anything outside of Wells Fargo is not really my business.
Okay. Did you tell her how to file a formal complaint with your company?
I told her I would file a complaint. So when any customers bring us a complaint, we are to legally file them. So I let her know that I would file a complaint, that she was upset that Wells Fargo did not drug test employees, that she was upset that she also felt like Jamie could get into her business. I told her, no, ma'am, that customer information is confidential. We are not allowed to look up customers unless they are present in the bank. She seemed to be okay with that. She wanted to close her accounts. I offered her ways that she could close her accounts. Then she changed her mind and said she didn't want to close her accounts because her mother and I believe herself still got Social Security through that account.
Okay. Did you file that complaint?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Do you have any concerns? Did you then or do you now have concerns about Jamie Dyer using drugs of any sort?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Has she ever missed work frequently or unexplained absences of that, anything of that nature?
No, ma'am.
Any odd behavior during her time at work or any other complaints from patrons about her performance or her behavior?
No, ma'am.
All right. So after that, were you able to talk to, did you reach out to your corporate security after that?
I did. The next day when Jamie came back to work, we did discuss the situation. She actually was very scared of the Price family, not mainly for her safety, but for her coworkers. She just doesn't know how they're going to handle or react to things. She had informed me that Carrie was staying with her currently, that they had to get law officers involved to go over to the Price family and get some of the belongings for Carrie and the baby. And then she just was worried that, she didn't know how people were going to react. She was scared that, it was going to bring drama into the branch, and she was worried about a job. I reassured her that she can't be fired for anything like this. It's not something we would fire her for. We do have resources in place at work. We have EAC, which is an employee assistance line. I encourage Jamie to call that. She did. We spoke to EAC, her and I, both individually and together. They got us in touch with our corporate security, and things were set into place.
So did y'all establish a safety plan?
Yes, ma'am. So anytime any member of the Price family came into the bank, Jamie was to go into the back. So there was no interaction with the Price family. Of course, we did not have enough on the Price family to issue a CTW, which would be a criminal trespass warrant, which we can issue on certain situations. So that our corporate security said, just if they come into the bank, to remind them they are to act professionally. If any harassment goes on, we were to reach out to our corporate security. Jamie was to go into the back just to avoid any of those type conflicts.
So did Nancy ultimately, or Miss Price, ultimately file a complaint with the corporate office?
She did.
And what was the nature of that complaint?
She complained about myself being friends with Jamie, my employee. She complained about there being drug use. She complained that Wells Fargo didn't drug test. She also complained that, let me see if I can pull the complaint real quick.
I'm going to object to her reading off of a document. It's not in evidence at this point.
It's okay. We can move along, Judge. So were there any corporate findings? from that complaint, from Nancy's complaint?
I believe either our district manager or our corporate security at one point reached out to Miss Price and kind of reiterated the same thing, like if she couldn't behave professionally or do banking business when she came into the bank, that there were other alternatives. She could go to a different bank location, which she was not happy about that either. She could close her accounts.
Okay. So did you have another encounter with Miss Price just a few days later? And if so, when was that?
Yes, she came back to the branch on February 11th around 1:20 p.m. Jamie was at lunch at that time. She told me that I was a liar, that I did not keep our conversation confidential, which that's not what I was initiating when I told her that, you know, customer information is confidential. She was still upset that Jamie worked here. She said that she was going to get me and Jamie fired.
Let me ask you a question. Did she have anybody with her?
She did. Terry Price was also in the lobby. She was kind of standing behind Nancy with her arms kind of crossed. She was standing in line to go to the teller line. They kind of would make eye contact, whisper a few things back and forth to each other. I just reminded Miss Price at that time that, you know, our corporate security was involved, that if she is here to do banking business, then I can assist her with that. If she doesn't want to come to this location, she's more than welcome to use the Burnett location. She then turned around and went to the teller line and did banking business.
Did she once again have any kind of recording device, listening device, telephone with her at that time?
She still had the earpiece in.
Okay. And did you have a sense as Terry was staring, and how do you know Terry Price?
Just I knew she was with Nancy that day, and then, you know, she's also an account holder, so her name came up, and Jamie has told us who she is.
So are there a number of other Price family members that have accounts or had accounts with Fargo?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know off the top of your head who they were?
I know that Nancy and Dennis Sr., Nancy's mother, Terry, her 3 children, and Kylie is Terry. Kylie Price is Nancy's granddaughter. I believe she's Terry Price's daughter. Her husband, James Middleton, had an account.
And how about Dennis and Carrie?
Yes, Dennis and Carrie also.
And did you get a sense, I mean, were you feeling a little intimidated by the demeanor of Terry, or what was your sense of her?
Yes, she kind of was just standing with her arms crossed. Nancy, of course, was very yelling at me. She was very upset. She would barely even let me speak. Terry was just kind of like, you know, like backup, I guess.
Did you hear, was there anything else going on outside of your office area during that time, or?
Yes, there was a lot of yelling going outside. I couldn't hear what was being said, but it looked like it was Nancy Price's vehicle parked kind of in the front by the front door. I could see it outside my office. There was, I believe it was Kylie Price, a younger girl, was in the car. She was yelling at somebody.
And then did Jamie come back from lunch after that?
She did. She came back from lunch. She came into my office. She was shaking. She said, you know, can you believe they came up here? And I said, you know, well, Nancy again came into my office. She's not happy about our previous, you know, situation. Her and Terry did, you know, a transaction on the teller line. I said, I heard a bunch of yelling outside. And that's when Jamie told me that it was Kylie, and Kylie was yelling at her.
Threatening, or she was shaking? Why did she say she was shaking or scared?
Yes, because the things that Kylie were yelling were kind of threatening, harassing, like, you should be scared, you should be worried, watch your back, we own you, those type comments. Jamie said she just ignored her. Her window was down. She was, you know, enjoying her lunch. She turned up the music in her vehicle, and then she came back into work. We again called our corporate security and had a conversation about the incident.
Did you ever have any interactions with Dennis Price?
Yes. He's been an account holder for quite a while. When I was a teller, I assisted him. When I was a banker, I believe I assisted him a couple of times, even when I was a service manager.
Okay.
So I did have interactions with him.
Very good. So, during this time, or since you've been working with Jamie, has there been an incident where he has come through the bank and, you know, some odd behavior or anything in particular, like through the drive-in window that you can recall?
Since we had of course, Jamie's never been allowed to help them. You're not allowed to help immediate family or friends. And so she's never helped the Price family. And then after that incident with Nancy, we had it in place that she would step into the back. There was an incident. I don't recall the date. She was on the teller line. Dennis came through. She didn't recognize him. She greeted the customer and he said, "Can I have another teller, please?" And she said, "Yes, it'll be just a few minutes." The other teller was busy and I guess he got anxious or decided to go to the ATM and he sped off.
Okay. All right. And that was all back in February. The original incidents that you told us about were February 2022. And then we're going to fast forward and you know that Carrie has passed away. And
Yes, ma'am.
There was an incident that happened on around October 3rd. So we're going to talk about September. Was there a time that that you recall Dennis coming into the bank around September the 30th?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. He came into the branch. It was Friday. It was crazy busy. It was either mid-morning or close to lunchtime. I'm not certain on the time. He was upset. He wanted to make a deposit. He had a wad of cash in his hand. He said he didn't want to make the deposit because he was afraid his wife would come withdraw out all the money. He also wanted to sit with a banker. He wanted to close his accounts and open a new one because he had that cash and needed to deposit it somewhere. He told us he was getting divorced and that he needed to get the accounts closed immediately. Our banker was busy. She was completely booked for that day. I offered to make him an appointment for the next day, and he did not want that.
So Jamie wasn't there that day, is that correct?
Correct. She was on PTO, and Dennis typically would come in when Jamie was off.
Okay. And would it surprise you to find out that they'd actually had what's called a family group conference earlier that morning regarding the child? Did Jamie ever tell you about that?
I knew that there was some instances with family violence and the baby had been placed into CPS. I know that at one point Carrie was wanting Jamie to take the baby, and so Jamie had spoke to me about what policies and what we would need to do if she was to receive the baby. We actually talked to our corporate security again when the baby went into CPS because she was a little worried. She was hesitant. She wanted the baby. She wanted to help her sister, but she didn't know how the Price family would react. And so we just let our corporate security know. They told us that it's outside Wells Fargo. It was a CPS case. There was nothing we could really do, again, unless they came in making threats or harassment if Jamie was to receive the baby.
Let me ask you another question about that late morning, early afternoon of September 30th. Was Dennis, you've seen him off and on over the course of the years, was his behavior different that day than normal?
Yes, he seemed very paranoid. He was pacing back and forth between the lobby. He was like, "I have to have this done today." The teller that was also speaking with him had a very patterned shirt on and he could not even focus. He was just all over the place. He just seemed very neurotic.
Okay. So that was a Friday. It was September the 30th. And then did you have an opportunity to see or hear that Carrie came to the bank on the following Monday, October the 3rd?
Yes, ma'am. She came through the drive-through to make a deposit into the business account. She was actually one of our first customers. We had just rolled up the blinds. Our lights weren't even on. And when the teller greeted her, she said, "Your lights aren't on." So we were like, "Thank you. We're getting those turned on now." And she was the first customer. I did see her. I believe I had to give the override for that transaction. And she was in a black truck, and I'd never seen her in a black truck before. And I even asked Jamie, "Whose black truck is that?"
So she was there waiting whenever the bank opened at 9 o'clock that morning on October the 3rd.
Yes, ma'am, that Monday.
Okay. And you do know that's the day that the incident happened later that day from talking to Jamie.
Yes, I found out, I believe, on Tuesday that there had been incidences that Monday.
And that did she had some cash with her? Is that what you said she deposited?
Yes, she made a deposit into the business account with her and Dennis.
Did that appear to be a similar or the same wad of cash Dennis was trying to deposit the Friday before?
It did look similar, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you seen let me ask you, what's happened to those accounts and for the prices? Did they close them, or what has come about their accounts?
They are currently closed. Our back office, corporate security, upper management decided to close their accounts. I believe our fraud department actually closed those accounts based on the situation and the interactions that we've had over the last few months with the Price family. And then once Carrie passed, just for the security of all team members, they closed the accounts.
And what did your bank do in respect for Carrie?
We actually closed the bank the day of her funeral, so all team members could go to the funeral and be support for Jamie, James, and her family.
Okay. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Sorry, anybody have any questions for Miss Lovelady?
I'll just ask a few.
Is that okay, Mr. Davis? I see you. Okay.
Thank you, Judge. Now, Miss Lovelady, you had mentioned that Carrie came in there, she was acting erratic, that the original time she came in with the baby and it was cold out.
She was upset, yes.
Okay. And you're not aware that if she had a car, she just got out of it and decided to walk that distance. Are you aware of that?
She did not have a car that I knew of.
Okay. And you're not aware of Carrie's background, right?
Very little.
Okay. So you don't know about any mental health problems that she had, right?
No, sir.
You don't know about any other criminal history that she had?
No, sir.
You don't know of any other erratic behavior that she used to do in the past, right?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. So you don't know for sure if she just erratically just decided to get out of the car and walk with the baby, do you?
I don't know.
And then when you were saying where Carrie was saying they're going to think I'm a bad mom, and Jamie was saying don't put thoughts in your head like that, right? That's what you said?
Yes.
You don't have any reason to know why Carrie might have been talking about why she might be considered a bad mom for anything else she's done, right?
No, sir.
And you've never met Abigail Moore, correct?
Correct.
And I think one of the issues is that I think that what Nancy had mentioned to you is that she was mad because she thought y'all were talking in confidence, and yet Carrie knew all about it later on through Jamie. Did that come up?
Correct.
And so you're also not aware of any of the disputes that Dennis and Carrie also had with Jamie and James, are you?
No, I'm not aware.
Jamie never told you about a dispute where they stole money from Dennis and his guitar?
I knew about the guitar, yes. I did not know about any money being stolen.
And you didn't know about the police making James and Jamie give that back?
I knew that she gave the guitar back. The police actually did come to the branch at one point, and Jamie was speaking with the police.
Miss Lang.
Yeah, just to clarify, Ms. Lovelady, I think Mr. Davis was asked if Carrie was acting erratic the day she showed up in her flip-flops in the winter with the baby in a carrier. And I want to make sure your term, you said she was upset. Is that right?
Correct. She was upset.
So she wasn't babbling. What was she saying? Irrational things, incoherent?
No, she really wasn't talking a whole lot. She was just upset. She had mentioned that her and Dennis had been in a fight, and she left.
Did she tell you she had walked up there?
She told Jamie, and Jamie told me that she walked up there.
Okay. Did she look like, from her physical appearance, like somebody who probably would have walked 3 miles carrying a baby in February?
Yes.
Okay. Have you been around, you told me before you'd been around Carrie before, and have you seen her ever act erratic?
No, ma'am. Every time she came to the bank, to make deposits or whatnot. She seemed pretty happy-go-lucky.
Okay. That's all I had, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Last bit is real quick, Judge.
Okay.
Regarding the word erratic, I apologize that she seemed frustrated, upset.
She just seemed upset.
Okay. So, and you don't know what Carrie's like when she gets upset, do you?
I do not know.
Okay. And so when she said they got in a fight and they left, she left. Got in a fight with Dennis and I left. You're not aware if she decided just to get out of the car and take the baby and walk 3 miles because she's stubborn, are you?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Anybody else?
No, Your Honor, and may she be excused.
Yes. Anybody have any objection for Ms. Lovelady being excused? No.
No
No,
objection.
Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused. You don't have to come back. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all for allowing us to go out of order. I will resume with, with the court's leave, with Mr. Dyer.
Yes, sir. Is he back? Are they here? They are.
There.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Dyer, we're going to go back a little bit to your prior testimony with Mr. Davis. So you've had to come in today and talk about something that happened how many years ago with the incident with your first wife?
30 years ago.
And is it fair to say that's not a real easy thing to go back and relive, is it?
No, ma'am.
But why are you doing that today, James? Why are you putting yourself through this?
I'm putting it for the baby.
You're committed to baby Dennis then,
Yes, ma'am.
whatever it takes. Okay. In fact, with your daughter, I guess you testified her name is Angel.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ever sign your rights away to her after the incident?
No, ma'am. They tried to get me to, and I would not.
Did you in fact pay child support for her
Yes, ma'am.
until she turned 18 or left high school? Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the names of her children?
Yeah.
That's
We
a
got
hard question. You got to ask.
Baylor.
Uh-huh.
I got Baylor, Leslie, Maisley,
Uh-huh.
and Racker.
There you go.
What
And
was
have
the
you
first,
ever,
I'm sorry. What was the first one?
Baylor.
seen them?
No, ma'am. Only in pictures that she sent me.
But you know their names, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
What do your other grandkids call you?
Pawpaw.
Okay. You also were asked about your other wives, and you've been married 4 times. And the home study is what talked about 2 of them, Patricia and Terry. Patricia Lindecker, I guess, and Terry Anderson. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you marry them while you were incarcerated?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you proud of those marriages?
No, ma'am.
You had to do it again, would you not do it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. But how long have you been with Jamie, Miss Dyer?
20 years.
Okay. And y'all are married?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Talked a little bit with Mr. Davis about the time that you were, how old were you with the burglary when that burglary was committed?
I was, I believe, 18.
And how old were you with the accidental death of your first wife? How old was that?
I believe I was 20.
Okay. And so in between that, you would have been 19 whenever that assault family violence case happened. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So from the time you were 18 to 20 is that the extent of your criminal history?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about that. You were 19 years old with the family violence, and who was the victim is what I'm going to say. That's who filed the charges. Who was that, and how old was that person?
He was my older cousin. He's 5 years older than me. So his name was Mark Nobles.
Okay. And had y'all been drinking that day?
Yes, ma'am.
So during that course of your life, that was part of your normal, you did that as a young man, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you physically able and capable during that fight? Did you have any health problems or physical problems during that altercation?
Yes, ma'am. I was on crutches at the time.
Do you remember why you're on crutches?
I don't believe so. I can't remember why I was on crutches. It's something to do with my ankle.
Okay. But you got in a fight with your cousin, and then what happened to those charges?
They were dropped.
Okay. So how old are you now?
I'm 51.
So that was 31 years ago. You're not that man today, are you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, there was conversation about drinking and alcohol that came up. And, you did a home study. So tell us what happened with that home study. Where were you? What went down? How were you interviewed for that home study?
There was two of them. One was on the back porch and one was in the dining room.
Was it the same day?
No, ma'am.
So was it one person or two people came for the interview?
One person each time.
Were they the same people or different people?
Different people.
Did they ask a few questions or a bunch of questions?
A bunch of questions.
Okay. So, in your home study, you said that it says that Mr. Dyer does admit to socially drinking and states that he may have a few drinks a couple of times a month, but does not drink to the point of intoxication. Mr. Dyer states that there are sometimes a few beers in the refrigerator. So, Mr. Rafael Tovar testified there was no beer in your refrigerator whenever he came and looked. Would he be lying, or is that true? Frequently, there is no beer in your refrigerator.
There's no beer in my refrigerator, and he's never been to my house.
Oh, Rafael has. Okay, so maybe the home study included that there was that. But in your testimony, you said, I have not had any alcohol since last year. So,
yes, ma'am.
Well, how could it be in your home study? I think it was in November that you said that one statement versus what you're saying. You said today in testimony, by last year, do you mean 2022, or in the past 12 months you've not consumed alcohol?
No, just 2022. After my home visit, that was it.
Okay. And then, so it's only been when you said since last year, you mean since the home visit, 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then we talked a little bit about the no trespass sign that was up. Who was that? Do you remember who y'all had asked to put those trespass signs up, or why y'all put them up? Who were the individuals you're trying to keep away from the house?
There was a lot in the neighborhood. There's a lot of kids come over. They ride bikes because it's 4 acres, and I didn't want kids getting hurt. If they got hurt on my property, I would be liable for it.
Were you also concerned that Dennis might be coming around?
Yes.
Okay. And what about Hope's husband? Was that a concern too?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I think you might have gotten confused when Mr. Davis asked you about where Luke lives. The way the question was phrased, you may have thought he was saying, does Luke live in the house in Granite Shoals? And that's where Hope lives, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But does Luke live on that property?
Yes, he does live on the property.
And where does he live on that property?
He lives in his RV.
Okay. So were you confused when Mr. Davis, you thought he asked this, he lived there. Were you thinking he was saying in that house with Hope?
Yes, ma'am, in the house.
Okay. But he did grow up in that house, right?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
Okay. All right. And then do you know if Hope has ever had her children taken out of her custody by CPS?
No, ma'am, she hasn't.
Okay. And the question about if Carrie paid rent or was buying the house, things of that nature, you did say there was an exchange of some money, but what was that all about?
Yes, ma'am. We wasn't charging her rent. She insisted upon paying rent.
Okay.
But that was the extent of it. I was not aware about selling the house or anything like that. I would have never did that.
So there was no document signed, no verbal contract that said, you pay this money, you're going to buy this house?
Not to my knowledge. No, ma'am.
Okay. What happened that made Carrie move out of that house? Did y'all evict her?
No, ma'am, we did not.
Why did she leave the house?
She just wanted to get back to Dennis.
Had she already been going back and forth to Dennis's already before?
Yes, ma'am.
And there had been periods of time when she'd go over to the Price compound and not come home. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd shared before Jamie was concerned about the security of the house being left unattended.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how long the house sat empty from the time Carrie chose to leave to when Hope moved in?
I believe it was around 6 months because I was working on it.
Okay. And Mr. Davis also asked a little bit about your father-in-law, John, and about the family violence thing and his violent tendency. And in that conversation, well, you said you just don't believe it. You never saw any evidence. And he said, well, you heard about it, right? That's what he asked you today. And
Yes,
you said, yes, and then your answer was yes, you had heard about it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So when was it you heard about those concerns?
Be honest with you, in this court.
Okay, so nothing before today or
No.
the first hearing, had you ever heard that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So part of the home study, it actually, I think, refers to something Jamie said, but you were asked about it, whether you were seeking a protective order or restraining order against the Prices, and you said you didn't do it. So, I mean, is that still your testimony? Is it possible Jamie had said that or had the intention and communicated that, but it wasn't something that you said or communicated? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I never said that.
Okay. So can you recall when Carrie, there was that incident with Wesley in the car and she got charged with endangering a child? You're familiar with that case, right?
Vaguely.
Okay. So did Carrie reach out to you guys to help at all? How much were y'all aware of that incident and how much interaction had y'all had with them at that period of time?
I wasn't involved very much. Jamie and her sister would talk about that. I would try to stay on the out. I don't. But
okay. Then it's come up a couple of times. Why didn't you and Jamie try to get custody of Wesley during all this? How was that determined that y'all didn't get him?
Carrie and Cody swept in within 3 days. They had him.
So they wanted him a lot, huh?
So I guess they beat us. So
okay. Did you ever have conversations with Carrie about baby Dennis and custody of him?
Oh yes, ma'am. Yes, I tried to get him.
Did you tease with her about that some, that you were gonna try to get him?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. All right. So you and Jamie, have y'all raised those 3 children that Mr. Nicholas went through the list of our kids with us? Have y'all raised them together?
Hope and Christian, they were 5 and 4, I believe. 5 and 3, I believe, when we got together, but raised them ever since then. So yes.
Did y'all have any CPS interactions during that time?
I don't believe so. If I don't know, I don't believe so, to my knowledge.
Let me ask it, did you ever lose custody of your kids? Did the government ever? Okay.
Oh man.
And you have several grandbabies now, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you spend much time with those grandbabies?
Every chance I get.
Okay. What are their age ranges in general? I won't pin you down on that.
From 9 to 4.
Okay.
No,
and so
9 to 2.
All right. And so how they all live in the area?
The 4 of them does, and my older daughter, they live in Granbury.
Okay. For between Hope's kids, and then I think that one of your sons has a kiddo.
Yes, Jackson.
Jackson, yeah. So do you get to visit with them quite a bit?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of things do you do with your grandbabies when you have them with you? What do y'all do?
Everything from riding 4-wheelers, playing ball, giving them candy, yeah. Fishing, hunting.
Mm-hmm.
They work in the garden with me.
Mm-hmm. Do they do chores?
I'm doing they want to do.
Okay. And so you taught your older ones how to bow hunt, is that right?
I taught them how to bow hunt, replacing boards on decks. I've taught them anything they're interested in, I'm going to teach them. So.
Did you spend time with Hope and teach her how to work on cars and things of that nature?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you say she was a daddy's girl when she was growing up?
Absolutely.
How old was Carrie when you came into the family with Jamie, roughly? Like a teenager or a little kid?
She was probably a teenager, I believe. She was young.
Still in high school?
Yes, ma'am.
What was your relationship with her like?
Well, she sat us for us. I trusted her. I loved her like a sister. She wasn't a sister-in-law. She was a sister.
A little kid sister, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you testified earlier that she started having some mental health or acting differently issues whenever she first met up with Cody. Did things get worse after she started dating and was then married to Dennis?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that pretty stressful for you and Jamie?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
So from where you sit looking in with the relationship between Carrie and Jamie, do you think Carrie would like to get her riled up, get her big sister upset about stuff?
Oh, absolutely. That's what sisters do.
Okay. And if that was the tension, it was around the relationship between Dennis and Carrie, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Had you seen Jamie and Carrie have those kind of wound up things about any other types of situations if it didn't involve men?
No.
Okay.
It always involved men.
So there's been earlier testimony, I think Carrie has spoken through Miss Abigail Moore, that y'all side of the family didn't do anything for her. You didn't answer the telephone whenever she needed help. Y'all just totally abandoned her, basically. Is that true, Mr. Dyer?
No, ma'am, that's not true at all.
Okay. So during the course of this time, did she call you for help and did you answer the phone?
Yes, ma'am. She had my phone number in her head by heart.
How often would you have to go and do something and to respond to a request from Carrie or get to go do it?
I would expect it at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Wow. And it was, give us an example of the nature of the call. What would happen?
This is Carrie again. Can you come get me? Me and Dennis had a fight. Dennis had me thrown in jail again. It's just a reoccurrence of the same stuff over and over.
Okay. And did you go?
Sorry?
Did you go get her?
Yes, ma'am, every time.
After this incident at the bank, you went and picked her up there. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she tell you she had driven in a car and gotten out and only walked a short distance in the bank?
No, ma'am. She said she walked the whole way from Dennis and her house.
Did she have a phone with her?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you actually let her borrow your phone during
Yes,
that time? And she stayed with y'all for a short while, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And during that time, did you receive a text on your phone from Dennis Price?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember, in essence, what it said?
I don't remember right offhand.
Okay. But was he trying, do you remember if he was trying to get a hold of Carrie? Is that why he said, do you remember that he was texting your phone not to talk to you? Is that correct?
No, ma'am, because I remember on the first set of text, it said to whoever phone this is. So he didn't even know it was my phone.
Okay. Have you ever seen Mr. Price in person?
I've seen him twice.
Okay. When was that?
One was the big snowstorm we had. Him and Carrie come out and he was going to help me work on the well down at the ranch. And the second time is when I took Carrie over to his house with the police to get some of her stuff.
Okay. That when go ahead?
And when the guitar was given back.
Right. And do you know much about that story with the guitar? Were you in the middle of that or were you doing something else? Okay.
No, was not.
All right. All right. So whenever Carrie would call you and you would go pick her up, was she acting, was she sad? Was she mad? What was her spirit?
She was always heartbroken.
Okay.
That's just what it is. She was heartbroken.
She really loved Dennis, Senior, or Dennis Price. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that time she came over in the snowstorm, how did she act when she was around Dennis?
She was very happy as I've probably ever seen her.
And is that the happiest you ever saw her during the course of this whole relationship that y'all were dealing with?
That happy, yes.
Okay. So do you recall a time when she called for help and you had to go pick her up and she was in a field? Can you recall any of that facts around that?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the court about that?
We got a call and we was coming back from Alba Falls and we stopped. I don't remember what road it was on, but she was in the grass hiding. And she had a bag with her And we picked her up and took her to our house. And I remember that because I had a glass of tea and she asked me for a drink. And when I got it back, it was empty. So, yeah. And then we took her home and her and Jamie talked and that was it.
So did she say why she was in that field?
Her and Dennis was fighting again and he ran her off. And she didn't want to go back to jail.
Had he had her picked up and taken to jail a couple of times or sometimes?
A lot.
Okay. We started our conversation with your reason to come in and be vulnerable and talk about your history is because of baby Dennis. So if the court decides to let him come stay with you guys as a placement, can you talk to us a little bit about how you are handling a little one? I mean, he's not even a year old yet. So what are your plans and how are you going to help Jamie as a family take care of this little one?
I'm going to keep working hard, provide everything he needs. I will take him to his doctor's visit. I will be able to take off anytime I have to take little man to wherever he's got to go.
Okay.
Follow all the rules, the feeding, everything about him.
Okay. Has it been hard following the rules whenever Mr. Tovar or anybody has told y'all to do things? Is that a hard thing to do for you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Will he have an opportunity to play with his cousins?
Yes, ma'am.
And do they come around like in the course of a month? How often will those little ones be out to play typically?
Well, since they got school, probably twice a month.
When they're out of school, how is it different?
They always want to come spend a night at Pawpaw's house.
Okay. And you have, you talked about a health concern in your home study for diabetes. Is that under control with some type of medication or something?
Yes, ma'am. I take medications for it. It's metformin. I've already lost 25 pounds. So, I mean, I'm still taking it because the doctors say I'm supposed to, but yeah, it's under control.
And there's nothing that keeps you from doing your job as a ranch person managing that property you're on or as a mechanic at this time. Is that right?
Absolutely not. There's no.
And let me ask you about your mother-in-law, Billy Parker. Does she deal drugs?
No, ma'am.
Does she use drugs?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is it fair to say that her and Jamie have a mother-daughter relationship?
Yes,
with
ma'am.
ups and downs? Okay. In the time you've been with Jamie, has most of the tension been around Laura primarily?
Yes, ma'am.
What's up with that?
We just try to step in and help her. That's all it was. She's really protective of her sibling.
So is that when Miss Parker and Jamie would bicker because Jamie would want it done a certain way and Miss Parker would do something different?
Well, Jamie would want it done now.
Okay.
And my mother-in-law, she wanted to help Laurie too, but there's also so much you can do. If somebody don't want help, they're not gonna, it don't matter what you do, you're just gonna push them away.
Right. Did y'all push real hard for Laurie to go to rehab?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened whenever y'all tried to do that?
She wasn't ready, apparently.
Okay. You get along well with Miss Parker and her husband, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And are you willing to establish and maintain appropriate, healthy relationships with the other side of the family as needed and as appropriate? Are you up for that?
Absolutely. Anything it takes.
Okay. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Dyer, I mean, just real quick, just to make sure I understood the timeline of your arrests. You were arrested for the felony in 1990. You were arrested for the homicide February of 1993. And then and I believe if I heard the question a minute ago, it made it seem like the assault, family violence on your cousin preceded the homicide, but it actually happened months later in August, correct?
I believe I was out on bond, I believe.
Okay.
I can't remember the actual time and day.
And then it was just a little scuffle with your cousin that wound up with you getting arrested, and you were the guy on crutches, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
And then your cousin dismissed the charges?
Yes, sir.
So they arrested the guy on crutches?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And then, and then when I was hearing the talking about Carrie and Wesley, I mean, I keep hearing the same theme, which is, well, you know, she was only bad or she got worse with Dennis and we couldn't control her when she was with Dennis. But the things that involved Wesley, the endangerment of the child charges that involved Wesley, those all involved Cody, right?
I believe so.
That was before Dennis, right?
Maybe. Yes, sir.
Maybe. Okay. So you indicate you've only really met Dennis twice, right? I mean, you mentioned the storm, the ice storm. What was the other one you said?
It's the third time when he come out to the house for the guitar.
The guitar, and they accused you of stealing money, right?
No, I've never been accused of stealing money from Dennis at all.
Okay, well, just to clarify, did they accuse Jamie of refusing to give money back that Carrie had?
No, sir.
Or that Dennis had given?
No, sir.
That never happened. Okay. And then, and then what was the other time? So we got the guitar incident, and the cops were involved in that one, right?
The cops was not here at the house when he came.
Okay.
I don't know too much about it because I really wasn't involved in that, but I was here when he come to get it.
You know, I want to talk about that too. You seem to not know a lot about some of these little incidences, and they're happened right in Kingsland, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, but Abigail, she needs to know all about them, and she's in Huntsville, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I mean, a second ago, you were asked about CPS history with your own kids. You couldn't even say if there was any CPS history. You said, I don't think so. Right?
Don't remember. I don't
Okay.
believe so.
Fair enough. You don't believe so. Okay. So we got, just make sure I'm understanding. We got the ice storm time period. We've got the guitar incident. Did you mention another time you'd met Dennis?
Yes, sir. I
When
did.
was that?
I seen him. I didn't talk to him or anything like that.
Okay. When was that other time you had seen him?
That was the day we left the bank, I believe, with Carrie, and we went to the police station, and they followed us over to the house to get her clothes and belongings. And I was in the car with the window rolled up.
So, I mean, as it seems from the testimony I'm hearing, it seemed like it's trying to sound like Jamie and Carrie had a good relationship, but for Dennis messing it up, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. But again, we just talked about there were all sorts of problems going on with Carrie well before Dennis, right?
Yes, sir. Not to this extent.
And Jamie and Carrie had a strained relationship going a long ways back, right?
I wouldn't call it that. They're sisters. They bicker.
They sisters are bicker. Y'all didn't even go to their wedding, did you?
No, sir, I did not. Jamie did.
And then you indicate that Jamie and her mom, they just bicker like mother daughter, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Typical for a daughter to harbor over the mother that she used to buy drugs for their younger sister twice a week. Is that normal mother daughter bickering to you?
I would say not, but yeah, no,
So maybe the bickering's a little more than just mother daughter, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. There was a lot of concern about how Abigail Price or Abigail Moore can afford to litigate this. How much have y'all paid in legal fees so far?
I don't recall. Jamie takes care of that.
Okay. Is anybody helping y'all pay the legal fees? Do you know of?
No, ma'am. No, sir. Sorry.
But you're on a need to know basis though, right?
I stay out of it.
You stay out of it. So it's acceptable for you to stay out of it and you live right in the thick of it, but it's not okay for Abigail to stay out of it?
I never said that. Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pass the witness, Judge.
Okay, anybody else?
I just need to redirect a little bit, Judge. But Ms. Parker has her hand up.
Let me let Miss Parker real quick. Let me see what she has to say. Miss Parker?
Yes. I was wondering if you were aware of the circumstances with Cody and Carrie. First of all, they both adopted the baby together. And were you aware that Cody dropped through affidavit that he overreacted, that she had never really endangered Wesley's life, and she did not drive the vehicle into the house, only up into the yard a little bit?
No, ma'am, I wasn't aware of that until now.
Okay. All right, thanks, Dan.
So you testified that the allegation was that you and Jamie had been accused of stealing money from Dennis and or Carrie, and came back to say, well, that you owed the money back to them, and you said you don't know anything about it. Was it possible Jamie could have had an interaction with them about it and you would have known about it?
I mean, it's a possibility.
Okay. And you did. It was an interesting response whenever I asked you about the CPS history with your own kids, and you kind of thought through. But Mr. Dyer, you're a pretty simple man, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You like to go out and work hard and enjoy your family time. Is that right?
That's all I do.
Would it be fair to say you like to avoid drama?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so is this all of this stuff we're doing in this case, is it normal to you? Is it common to have two people come in your house asking you questions and doing home studies? Is that normal for you?
No, ma'am.
Do you feel a little bit like a fish out of water?
Absolutely.
To clarify about going to the wedding, he was asking you, why didn't you and Jamie go to Carrie and Dennis's wedding? Have you had a chance to think through that and want to give another answer
I thought he was talking about Carrie and Cody's wedding.
Okay.
That's the one I didn't go to. Carrie and Dennis, they ran off.
Mm-hmm. So you weren't invited to their wedding, huh?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he also kind of led you down a path. I'm going to see where you go. He said that when Billy Parker bought drugs for Lori a couple of times a week, and Billy and Jamie fought about that, was that normal mother-daughter fighting? Do you have knowledge that Billy went and bought drugs for Lori? Do you know that? Or is that an assumption that maybe Jamie had?
Assumption, absolutely not.
Okay. So you're not saying that you know that your mother-in-law bought drugs for your sister-in-law?
No.
Okay. I pass the witness.
Anybody else?
No, Your Honor.
No. Okay. Mr. Dyer. Who is the rancher that you work for? He works from Lano?
Yes, ma'am. He's got a house here and in New Mexico.
And y'all live in the house in Kingsland?
No, ma'am. We live on the ranch next to them.
In Kingsland?
Buchanan Dam.
Buchanan Dam. Okay. Mr. Dyer, do you and your wife ever see Wesley?
On occasions. He was here Thanksgiving with Canyon.
So his dad lets y'all see him on occasion?
Well, not now since all this is happening.
Okay.
But before that, yeah, he was.
Go on.
He would come out for Cody would bring him out here when we had birthday parties for the kids and stuff like that.
Do you and your wife and Cody get along?
My wife and Cody, they butt heads a little bit. Me and Cody has no problems.
Okay. Does Canyon come to y'all's house?
He was here one time at Thanksgiving.
We're doing trying to do sibling visits with Canyon, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
If you and your wife were placement of baby Dennis, how would you facilitate sibling visits?
I will follow anything. If I'm told we're supposed to contact Abigail or whoever, we'll do that. I mean, I'll work with anybody.
Okay. And you and your wife, y'all took hair strands, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they were both clean, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you know Kathy Anderson?
Kathy Anderson, not personally.
You know who I'm talking about, who I'm referring to, though, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you've never met her?
And they're in visitations.
Okay, but not before all this stuff?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Dyer, during when one of the lawyers was asking you a question, you said, you kind of hesitate a little bit, and you said maybe about things that were going on with Wesley and Cody pre-Dennis. You know what I'm talking about?
Not quite. Yes, I do now. I
Okay,
don't know if Carrie and Dennis was carrying on in between, or when Carrie and Cody was together. That's what I was.
Okay. Because after Cody was that Alex Nero, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Before Dennis went to jail, how was your relationship with him, or did y'all have a relationship?
I do not have a relationship with Dennis.
You did not before he went to jail?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
I stay away from drama. I don't know him. I don't want to know him.
What about, did you know his mom, Nancy?
No, ma'am.
Do you know Abigail Moore?
Only when we went to visits, we see each other.
So none of the Price family during the time Carrie and Dennis were married.
I don't know him personally. I see him like Nancy, but that was it. No relationship at all.
Okay. When you say you see him, like you see him at HEB, what do you mean?
No, when we went over there to get her stuff, when the cops went over there with us, I seen Nancy and Dennis.
Okay, but no, like family get-togethers, nothing like that.
No, ma'am.
When Carrie and Dennis were together, would your family, and I mean Jamie and the Parkers and all them, would y'all get together with Carrie?
We would have Carrie out here numbers of time, but Dennis would never come with her. So,
okay. What about Carrie and her other husbands before Dennis?
Alex, I really don't know too well. Cody, they used to come to the get-togethers all the time.
Did you think that Carrie had, I know you're not an expert on this, but did you think that Carrie had mental health problems?
Yes, ma'am.
And explain to me why you think that.
She just, when her and Dennis would get in a fight, she would just flip out. She didn't know what to do. She was dependent on other people, which I don't know if that's, but.
Well, okay, say pre-Dennis, did you think she had mental health problems?
No, not when she first started dating boys, like 5 years. I mean, I've never actually seen it personally myself. I mean, I can only go by what, I hear, like to run into the building or something like that. I've never seen that before myself.
So you're saying you never saw her exhibit any mental health issues?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see her when you thought she was on methamphetamine or using any drugs?
No, because Carrie was, she's hygienic. I mean, she was, I would have never, ever said that I believe that she ever took any kind of drugs.
Okay. Because you said she's high energy. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just normally.
Just normally.
Baby Dennis is obviously a baby, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever changed a baby's diaper?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Do you feed babies?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you capable, like say Jamie has to go to work, they're having an audit or something at the bank. Are you capable of taking care of a baby by yourself?
Absolutely.
Do any of your grandbabies ever spend the night at y'all's house?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you ever been there alone with any of your grandbabies?
Yes, ma'am.
When they were little?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If something were to happen to you, say you got called, say you're keeping one of your grandchildren or baby Dennis or somebody, and you get, it's July 4th, things are going crazy on the lake, and you have to run into work, and Jamie's not available. Who would you call to help out with the kids at your house?
My mother-in-law.
Billy Parker?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you have any family in this area?
Yes, ma'am. I have a lot of family in this area.
Is their name all Dyer?
No, ma'am.
What are their names? Give me some names. Go on. And when you say this area, you talking about Kingsland? What area are you talking about?
Mostly Granite Shoals.
Okay. Where'd you go to high school?
I didn't.
You didn't? Okay. Well, where were you raised? What area?
I was raised in Marble Falls and Granite Shoals.
Okay. So you're from this area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I don't remember, I knew that the lady that your wife that was murdered, killed, whatever you want to say, killed, let's just say killed. I know her last name was Bilbrey, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
are her, and I know because I was a prosecutor back then, I know her parents carried a lot of resentment towards you, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they still in the community?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, so you haven't seen them around at the HB or anywhere like that?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So they would not be of any sort of concern. Have they ever caused you any problems since the conviction?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So that you would not consider them any type of threat to you or your family or anybody at your house, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. No.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions of Mr. Dyer?
No, ma'am.
I do, Judge.
Okay, Ms. Shaw.
Very briefly. Mr. Dyer, you indicated that, and there seems to be some sort of a time frame confusion or something we need to straighten out. With regards to Carrie's mental health, you indicated that it all started when she was dating boys. Is that what I heard you say?
She got into boys.
And what age is that?
Maybe 15, 16. Before that, it was raising pigs.
Okay. And so whenever you're talking about Dennis's involvement with Carrie and her mental health issues, what time frame are you referring to then?
Honestly, I don't know if they had maybe one good day out of their relationship that I could see.
Well, how long had Carrie and Dennis been together?
I think 3 months, 6 months. I don't remember totally.
I'm sorry. So do you know what month or year even that Carrie and Dennis began their relationship?
I want to say 2001, maybe
2021?
21. Sorry.
That's okay. So 2021. And are you aware that she divorced Cody Young in 2018?
I believe so.
Okay. And with Cody Young, the child that they had, we'll say of their marriage because he was adopted, that was Wesley, who we've spoken quite a bit about today and last time, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it your understanding that whenever Cody Young and Carrie were divorced, she was not with Dennis at that time, right? In 2018?
I can't answer that because
Okay.
I have no knowledge of it.
Are you aware that Mr. Young petitioned the court for a temporary restraining order against Carrie in 2018?
No, ma'am. I wasn't aware of that.
Are you aware that that Mr. Young alleged that Carrie was going to run Wesley in a vehicle into oncoming traffic to kill Wesley and herself
No, ma'am.
in 2018?
No, ma'am.
If her relationship with Dennis began in 2021, I think you said, then when that happened, that was not attributable to her relationship with Dennis. If that happened in 2018, would you agree?
Yes, ma'am. I really don't know when Carrie and Dennis got together.
Okay. And are you aware that Mr. Young petitioned for the termination of Carrie's parental rights in 2021?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Are you aware that Carrie's parental rights were terminated as regards to Wesley in 2021?
I believe she was coerced to sign her rights away. That's what I
Coerced
believe.
by who?
Dennis Price.
I'm sorry. So you believe that when Cody Young filed a petition to terminate Carrie's parental rights, that it was Dennis who coerced her to sign an affidavit of
I didn't
relinquishment?
know. I wasn't aware of Cody filing that. I knew Dennis tried to get told Carrie to sign her rights away.
Okay. Are you aware that she came to my office and and showed up here with an affidavit of relinquishment of her parental rights with regards
No,
to
ma'am.
Wesley?
No, ma'am, I was not.
Okay. Do you allege that Cody Young and Dennis Price somehow worked together in her relinquishing her parental rights with regards to Wesley?
I can't say. I really don't know.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Anybody else? No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Davis, next witness, please.
Oh, Jamie Dyer.